Everybody, in this video I wanted to show you guys how I made this bracelet from start to finish. It includes everything except for how to paint the eye. I didn't get that on camera, but let's get started. So I'm working on a custom piece for a client today, and I'm really excited about it because I get to recreate the dragon eye bracelet with this dragon eye that I custom painted for her. I'm really excited and pleased with how it came out. A lot of work went into this one. And so I got the bracelet base from Michaels. I got these little components from AliExpress.com. They're just plated metal, but they're going to be in a spot where they're not going to be contacting the skin, so I'm not so worried about whether or not they have nickel in them because there's no contact there. And then I also got this gear in a pack of gears from, again, Michaels, and I'm going to be wire wrapping it on. Before I go too much further, I am going to use Mod Podge Dimensional Magic that can be gotten at Michaels or Hobby Lobby or Amazon. I really like buying stuff from Michaels because they take competitors' coupons, and you can use, so you can get like 40% off of your items, or you can get 40% off of an item and 50% off of your total, or just like they always have interesting combinations of deals. Something that I run into a lot with my dimensional magic, especially when you can see there's like very little left in the bottle here, is that as it starts to dry out, I have to re-puncture the tip, and I just use an awl, and that works. So I'm going to wipe that off, because this can get kind of messy. So, but I'm going to use the dimensional magic on the back of this eye to position and place this gear. I'm just doing a little bit of a thin layer, and it's just enough that as the gear comes into contact with it, as that dries, it's going to keep it from slipping around all over the place and driving me crazy. I'm going to put the cap back on. The next step now is these components here. I want to fill in this kind of empty spot on the sides, but you can see they're very clearly not shaped around to that. So what I'm going to do is I have my round nose pliers, and I'm going to grab it quite firmly. I recommend doing this with pliers that have a box hinge, because if you come in and do it with pliers like this that have like more of a scissor hinge and you twist it, I've actually broken pliers like that before. So I'm just going to grip quite firmly and just start shaping. So you can see there, it gives it just that little bit of a curve, and then I'm going to come in a few more millimeters, and you can actually, like, it's got some pokey bits that are hard on the fingers, so you can actually come in and grab it with some nylon jaw pliers and just kind of shape and form it around to give some of a curve in it. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side, trying to be consistent. Like, you don't want to you want to keep all of your curves parallel to each other. That way it's one consistent plane of curve, because otherwise it's not going to lay flat. There we go. It's got a little bit of a curve in it now, and you can push that up and you can see it makes a lot more contact now as opposed to how it was. And just that little bit of increased contact makes all the difference. And so I'm going to keep, use your judgment to determine how much and where you need to curl it to get it to sit and fit nicely. Oops. But yeah, just like that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use more of this Mod Podge. And you could use an epoxy, but I like the Mod Podge because it is a little runny. Really? It sealed back up that quick? There it goes. And I'm just doing a pretty thin layer, spread pretty evenly around. Oops, I don't know why I'm such a butterfingers today. And I'm getting that nice in position, just as flat as it'll go. And now if I can find one, well, here's something I can use. Normally I would use a clamp, but here I've got just a nice little binder clip. And a clamp would work a lot better. Found one. Just a little clamp like this. This one's all kinds of busted up and crooked, but normally they have little orange tips, but it doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to hold it on there. Just like that. And then kind of set this off to the side where it's not going to be bothered. And, oh mercy. Because you don't want it to be like dripping everywhere. There we go. So we have that. I'm going to put it on a piece of tissue just in case it does decide to drip everywhere. So just like that. And I'm going to push that off to the side, and I'm going to start forming and shaping the other side as well. It really helps with this design that there's a thinner part here in the middle, and you don't want to snap it in half. I mean, if you do, you'd still be able to utilize it in like a polymer clay project or something, but I liked it as its whole nice round shape. Pliers are so nice. But yeah, there we go. Just nice and, well, not really nice. It's pretty wonky looking, but it'll work. So there you can see, it'll make contact, and it's not protruding out horribly. So I'm going to do just a bit more of that Mod Podge. And then I'm going to insert this here. Where'd that binder clip go? There it is. And just clamp it down and set that off to the side. So I'm going to give this about half an hour for the Mod Podge to really get nice and set up before I go any further. Just because there's nothing worse than, well, there's lots of things worse, but for the sake of this tutorial, it gets really annoying if you pick up a piece and stuff starts falling apart and then you get halfway dried sticky Mod Podge on everything. Like, it's not the end of the world, but if you can wait 10 more minutes and avoid it, that's the way to go about it. So I'm going to start wrapping some of the wires, and then I'll meet you all right back here in a little bit. So now the Mod Podge is dry. The eye is positioned. And I wouldn't rely on just the Mod Podge to keep it on there, but as far as just holding it stable so I can do the wire wrapping, this is ideal. I'm going to be using a 26 gauge silver plated titanium colored para-wire. This is copper core and it's dead soft, so it's really nice and easy to work with. And I have no idea how much it's going to take, so I'm actually going to be working with it on the spool. Like, I'm not going to cut it until the very end. And what I'm going to do here, if I can, it looks like I made points of contact all over, but except for here at the edge. So I'm going to poke this through just the edge there, and this just holds it stable again for just a little bit. Or I guess really I don't want to have to deal with a complicated tail as the design progresses, so I'm just going to pick a notch and I'm going to come across about that much. You don't want to come across so much that it's going to be covering up the entirety of the eye, but you also don't want to come across like this to where it's not holding enough of the cabochon down, because I'm going to be referring to it as the eye from here on, but you could do this with any gear and with any flat-backed stone or bead that is not drilled. And I mean, it can be drilled as well, but let's get going. And again, we have the option of we could hook on every single one, but I want a little bit more of an open and airy effect, so I'm going to hook through every other tooth on the gear. And I'm trying to keep my tension pretty nice and tight. That way I don't have any like floppy loose wires anywhere. And just stay consistent about which tooth in the gear you're threading through. And you just continue all the way around, again keeping a nice even tension. And this uses surprisingly a lot of wire, so that's why I keep it on the spool, is so that way I don't have to worry about splicing any in. Excellent. And it turned out, what a crazy random happenstance, but it turned out that I have just enough teeth that it makes a nice even pattern all the way around. Because I guess if it has an odd number, then you'd end up doubling up. Okay, so that was my last one. So you can see here, because in this next tooth, there's 2 wires going through. So that was my last one to place. So I'm going to use my wire snips. Go ahead and snip it. Set the spool there off to the side. And now from here, what I do is I'm just going to kind of come in and thread like that. Just threading through to right here. I mean, it keeps it held down. And then I'm going to go to the next part and just kind of, well, it's all bent funny on the tip, so I'm going to snip it again. But I'm just going to wrap a couple of times. I mean, not loosely, but not so snug that it's distorting the design either. And again, this is something that it's not going to be coming into contact with the flesh, because I'm going to be attaching it to our bracelet base over here. So I don't have to worry about little pokey bits, but at the same time I do want it to be quite secure. So I'm just going to coil this in. We've got a little spiral there. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, coming in from the edge. Grabbing it. Love me some bent nose pliers. They are so handy for stuff like this. Just getting in there where the wire's kind of just like hanging out. And just cinch around. And then I'm going to make a sloppy little just spiral. And that's how it looks on the front. And I think that makes a really huge difference in just the level of detail that goes into a piece. So now from here, I'm going to take off my clamps. Now you can see that pulled off real easy. Both of them did, actually. So that's a test that you want to put through all of your work, is because you don't want to have to worry about all that junk. Now, the Mod Podge is still tacky enough that it's holding on there. But I think what I'm going to do, just to ensure the durability of this piece, is I'm going to come back to my old standby, the DevCon 5-minute 2-part epoxy. I get these actually from Lowe's, but I'm sure you could find it online. It has a nice thick consistency. I'm just folding up a piece of scrap paper to pull off a section of it. So again, just a sec. But this stuff, in the past, the Mod Podge has worked, but I really want the durability of this piece to just be like maxed out. Like, I want it to be as absolutely secure as what I can make it. And I swear by this epoxy. So I'm going to take my tissue and the Mod Podge and just kind of wipe off the bits that aren't dry yet. Really kind of disappointed in it for not holding on. And it really seemed like if I had let it dry maybe overnight, it would have held up, but I don't have overnight. So I have about roughly 5 minutes. So no, I've got more time than that. But okay, so I wiped out all the goop. I have my piece of paper that I'm going to be mixing on. I have a nice long toothpick that I'm going to be mixing with. And now I have my 2-part epoxy. I'm going to blurp. Get a pretty decent glob. That should be plenty. And I do love this stuff because a little does go a long way. On non-porous materials, it works best if you kind of rough it up with some sandpaper first. And you can see here I'm just kind of mixing and folding. You want it really evenly distributed. Oops, there goes my toothpick. DevCon has a 30-minute epoxy as well. I find it is much runnier. Oh gosh, the smell of this is awful. Fortunately, we've got a nice drafty house, but don't let this stuff get on your skin. Don't eat it. Don't deep breathe. It smells like burning horsehair, kind of, maybe, or at least what we imagine burning horsehair might smell like. So I have a little anvil here. You could use whatever you want, but I'm using it to put my bracelet on. So I needed something that it would fit over. And I'm going to take this and just glob right here into this part. Like, y'all can't tell, but there's an actual breeze coming through my house. Like, that's how drafty it is. So if it weren't so cold, I'd crack a window, but it's pretty chilly today. And now I'm going to position my eye. And I'm going to wiggle it and make sure, like, I'm actually going to pull it apart so you can see the kind of contact it was making. That's lots and lots of nice contact there. I'm going to add a little bit more of the epoxy just because I don't mind if it overflows a bit, because this is going to be covered with wire wrapping. And I would rather it make a more solid contact and ooze out the side than to not. Yeah, like, I don't want to be stingy with it. There we go. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to position. You want to make sure your eye is not, like, you don't want to put it on sideways. I mean, if you do, go for it, but for the most part, it looks nice if it is nice and straight. At least that's what I'm going for. But I'm not going to tell y'all how to make your stuff. If you want it all crazy lopsided. Oh no, the mailman. Whatever shall we do? Every time. Like, really. One day I'll be able to film a video where the mailman does not come by my house. But today is not that day. Thank you for warning me about our crazy serial killer mailman. He's not really a crazy serial killer. The dogs just think he is. So here I am putting the goopy epoxy on the sides. Getting it all up underneath there. And I mixed a little bit more than I actually needed, but it's better than having to try to do 2 separate batches, I think, because I mean it's just a little more than what I needed. Okay, and now I'm going to take this one and position it, like kind of just cramming it really up in there. And then I'm taking this one. I could use a little bit more on that side. Oops. And there we are. Push up. Now this is so thick you don't even have to clamp it really. Whenever it's this far along, it's going to start curing. Excuse me. You'll be able to feel, this is why I do it on a piece of paper, is you can feel on the back side it starts to heat up, and that it's a delayed chemical reaction, I guess. Like, I mean, I'm not a chemist, but I kind of have a rough, loose, like layman's understanding of chemical reactions generate heat. And so since it takes 5 minutes for it to set, that chemical reaction is delayed a bit. If you're a chemist, I'd love to hear the science behind this stuff. But, and so that's how I know it's starting to set up, is whenever it starts. It's just a little warm on the back. But, here in a bit, it'll get actually quite hot to the touch. And then you can also test it, like it's starting to get really stringy with the toothpick. So as it starts, like I'm going to keep mixing so that you can see how it goops up. Because at this point, I would still use it to attach stuff. It's getting down into the seconds though. So see there how it's starting to really kind of glob and blob and hold a little bit more shape. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to go off camera. I was looking at the epoxy. But yeah, now it's barely dropping at all. So, I mean, you can keep working with it for quite a while. It's even warmer now. But yeah, I'm gonna check and make sure that everything's in a good position. Kind of just straightening, primping, making sure it's nice and centered. So now here you can see it's getting harder and harder too. And it's getting a little cloudier maybe. Like now it's past the point where I wouldn't use this anymore because it's a little too becoming a plastic. Until finally it's basically just hard. And it still has a little longer. But yeah, that's basically, this is how I use the epoxy. Oops, and it leaked out the back. That's what fun. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave it be. Where it leaked out the back on this eye, I'll be able to go through with a craft knife and just shave that off. So while this finishes setting up, like you can see now, I mean, really stringy, way past the point of application. Because, I mean, it sticks to itself right now, but it doesn't even really stick to the paper very well. So once it gets to this point, I'd just scrap the batch. But, I mean, that gives you plenty of time to work and rework what you're doing. So I'm going to fold this in half again. And so now, while this finishes setting up, I wanted to show you guys, here it is. I'm making the wire sculpture that's going to be built around this bracelet base. Because, I mean, technically, right now, once this finishes setting up and I cut off the epoxy that oozed out the back, this is technically done. This is a bracelet. But I'm making something really extravagant for the client. You can see I have quite a bit of wire set up. This was, oh, let me see on the yardstick, about 30 inches of wire. And I used a double arm span of the thinner gauge. I'm using 18 gauge for the base and 26 gauge for the wrapping. And what I'm doing here, you can see, I'm trying to avoid this, how it's not perfectly straight on the bottom. And the way that I get it to be a little nicer than that is, I'm going to wrap a couple of rotations for y'all to see. I've wrapped 5 around one wire, and then I'm going to wrap 2 around 2 wires. 1, 2. And then exiting towards the bottom, I'm going to come in with my nylon jaw pliers and just smush that down. Keeps it nice and tight, nice and even. And then I'm going to wrap twice around the 3 wires closest to me. So there's 1, 2. Have it again exiting towards me. And smoosh. And I'm trying to keep a pretty tight, even tension as well. So now twice around 4 wires. And this is where you can see it's starting to get a little wonky. It doesn't want to stay in line. So I've got my finger on the back side of it to keep the wires in line. And smoosh with those nylon jaw pliers. And I'm going to wrap 2 around all 5. Again, trying to keep my tension nice, trying to keep everything nice and in line. And then I'm going to come in and smoosh. Now 2 around 4. And you can see as I get to that bottom, I kind of push, as I get to the bottom, I've pushed up, so now there's a bend in the wire there. And so whenever I wrap around, it's already bent right there. And now I can put a bend in that top part. And I come in and swoosh. And now 2 around 3. One and 2. Just using my thumbnail to kind of pull that down. And then 2 around 2. Oops. Isolating those 2 wires. Come on, camera. There you go. There's 1, 2. Yeah, I'm so sorry for the relatively low video quality, but I take all my video on my cell phone, and while it's a pretty good cell phone for cell phone purposes, the camera has a really inconsistent focus, and I'm not really tech savvy, but I'm hoping that as we hit our future goals with Patreon, I'll be able to save up and actually get like a really good camera that's suited for my very specific purposes of jewelry tutorials and stuff. So if you guys like my tutorials and everything, like I'll do a big promo at the end directing you where to go, but that's one of the things that we're really trying to save up for with the channel to really increase our video quality. Okay, so I did the 2, and now I'm doing the 1 around 1 weave, 5 around 1, sorry. So there's 3, 4, 5 rotations around just the 1 wire. And this one's still, it's still messier than I'd like for it to be. Drat. So, I mean, just with practice, it'll get better, like, hopefully. Usually I do just 1 rotation around each segment, so it would still be in a triangle like this, but instead of doing 2 wraps around 2, 3, 4, 5, then 4, 3, 2, I'd do 1 wrap. So it would make a narrower triangle, but I really liked the kind of wide, because it gives such a contrast when the light hits it. I really like the texture on this one. And I think, let's pull this down. Yeah, I think I'm going to do 2 more of this wrap. And then I will meet you guys back here to do more sculpting on the rest of the eye. So I've finished doing the weave all the way around. And I used the wire that was left over to do this coiling. And it all came out just a little less neat than I would like it to be. So I'm going to go through and kind of touch up. Just tightening it down, cinching it down with my pliers. Like so. Trying to get everything nice and smooth and even. Oops, gravity. There we go. And then also I tried like smushing the bottom down on these triangles. That did not help. So I'm going to go through and just recompact everything nice and straight with my nylon jaw. And you can see here I got some spreading on this one. So what I'm going to do is just push it together like that. That way it's nice and even and neat. So from here, gosh, this is cumbersome. So this had stuck to my anvil a bit, which I can now scooch out of the way. But the epoxy is now nice and solidified, so I can actually come through and just kind of chip it off with my fingernail. Or if I had a craft knife, or not my teeth. Where's my craft knife at? Here's a nice little chisel. So I'm going to come through and I'm going to scrape this to make it nice and even. Careful to not like slice yourself open. Kind of just tweaking with it. There we go. Keeping it nice and smooth and even. Very nice indeed. Chipping that down. Okay. Because you want it to be really comfortable when you go in to wear it. Yeah, I can't feel that it was there at all. So, kind of get all that mess out of the way. So now I have the wire. And I'm going to thread. I'm going to offset these 3. And I've got all of this coiled, so I'm going to take this wire, the 4th one, second one away from me, and thread through. I love these bangles because they have these side holes. So I'm just going to thread through on this side. And the more we work with this wire and shorten all of it, the less cumbersome and weird this is going to be. But until then, it's just going to be cumbersome and weird. There's no really way around it. So you can see it's coming through on the back, nice and snug, just like that. And I'm actually going to wrap around and refeed it through. And to get it to lay where I want it to, I'm going to put that initial bend right there. This way, even as it shifts and moves, it'll still settle down into that point. And I'm going to come in with my nylon jaw pliers because I'm kind of wrestling with it. And just give it a nice solid bend and then have it come down straight out the bottom. And now I'm going to take this and I'm going to wrap it around here because I want this to be like the top lid, like of the eye. So again, I'm going to come second wire in and I'm going to feed down and through. Now this one I'm going to have traveling upward. So you can see how that comes through and nestles right there, coming out the back. So I'm going to bring it around and give it that sharp bend. And I want to come in underneath all these other wires so that they're not getting like trapped down. And with trying to pull it through without scraping the wire finish off on the metal bracelet base. It's going to come through, and there we are. I'm going to smush it down nice and flat with my pliers and pull it up in that direction. Now this one's all kinds of like textured and wonky now, so I'm going to grab my nylon jaw pliers and try to straighten it out some. There we go, nice, and that's lots smoother. I think that's a good thing. But keep in mind, don't overdo that because it also really work hardens the wire. So now from here, I think I'd like to incorporate a layer of beads. Oh, all this wire. So cumbersome. You can see I'm kind of coiling it up onto itself just to get it kind of out of the way. Be careful to avoid doing any 90-degree bends whenever you do that. Okay, so now I have these seed beads, and I'm going to do a full arm span of this 26 gauge wire, and I'm going to snip it off. And so from here, I'm going to take, this will be coming from the top of the bracelet. I'm going to do like maybe 5 to 10 rotations, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. Compact that down with my nails. And instead of snipping this little bit right here, I am going to just twist and smush it down with my fingers. Whenever I get to that last little bit of the wire, I'm going to use these bent nose pliers to kind of smush and compress it down. Z-Dog! One day they won't bark through a video, and I'll miss them. Okay, so I got, that's about 1/2 centimeter, maybe a little bit more, closer to 1/4 of an inch maybe. Oops, no, come back. And these are translucent seed beads in a size 8, and I get them from Fire Mountain Gems. But I really like these beads because the color is solid all the way through. So I don't have to worry over the years about them getting like scratched up and losing their color and vibrancy. 2, 3. And I'm just going to do a bead. And then wrapping 1, 2, 2, 3. Yeah. So I guess technically it's a total of 4 times. So there's a bead, and I'm trying to keep them consistent about where the wire is crossing on them. So there's my stabilization. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to brace that with my fingernail and then go 1, 2, 3. And I try to keep the wire exiting towards me every time because then it gives it a consistent loop around each time. So I'm just going to thread that on, put that around, 1, 2, 3. And you can see I'm working much closer toward the tip than I am towards the base of this wire. That's because for me it's a lot easier to not have to dodge the long tail of the wire every time. 1, 2, 3. And so as we do this, I'm going to get about 2, maybe even 3 inches worth of it done. And then I'll just grip the wire like this and slide it down into place. So I'm going to do this on both of the wires that we just wrapped on. And so I'm going to go and do this off camera, and then I'll meet y'all right back here. So here we are, and I made a little bit of a modification. I did have the wire bent out to where it was going in this direction, but I folded it in on each side. So it's still the same concept of it wrapping across the top and across the bottom, but now, I don't know, it lays better. It's a little more offset, and I prefer it this way, I think. So I've threaded, and also I did about half of it with the beads and the wrapping, and then the rest of the wire I had cut, I just wrapped, coiled onto the core wire. And over here you can see I just have it wrapped around through there. And so I'm going to bring that, I think I want to stabilize it just a little bit more. So to do the same thing on the other side, I'm going to bring this wire through, and I'm just going to kind of poke it through. Oh, come on, get through there. There we are. Poke it through here on the other side. Normally I wouldn't be struggling with this so much, but I wanted to keep it all on camera, and I only have about 10 to 12 inches of space between the work surface and my camera. So it's making it a little complicated, but thank you for bearing with me. So I have it threaded through that way, and I'm going to thread this one, like just bend it around like that. Okay. So here we are. This is what we're working with. And again, technically I could just tuck all the wires away and this would just be a bracelet. And I think that would be a very nice bracelet. But we want it to be just a step above and beyond, even more than what it is. So I'm going to keep these guys going up across the top here. I think that I would like to do let's see. I could totally pull off making like 2 wires woven together. Where you have like it would be 5 rotations on one and then 2 rotations on both, and then so let's see. Okay, so I'm going to isolate, we're coming off the top here. I'm going to isolate these 2 wires and kind of bring them out this way, just to keep everything else out of my way a bit. And I'm going to do another complete arm span. Maybe, yeah, maybe an arm span in like 10 inches, just in case. Snip. And so now I'm starting right here, close to the end of the wire. And I'm going to just pin this part down with my thumb. And then wrap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Compress that down with my nails. Now, just gonna bend this little bit of wire. There's no sense in wasting any of it, even though it's just enameled copper. It's still, you know, $6 or $7 for 150 feet of it. So, again, pretty good deal. But no sense in wasting any little bit of it if I don't have to. So just smush that down with my pliers. And so from here, all this wire that I'm going to pull out of the way. And I want to make sure there's no weird twists or anything in the wire coming from the bracelet. Okay. So I've got 5 around one, and then I'm going to go 1, 2 around both. And now I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 around one, then 1, 2 around both, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 around one, and 2 around both. And I'm going to continue repeating this quite a bit. And I'm going to try to keep it kind of snug and even, like how it is here. So sorry for the blurry camera. But I'm also still going to try to like kind of scooch it down the wire. So by the time I get an inch of it woven, I'll have needed to have scooched it all the way down towards the end. 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. I just love the look of that because it gives you such a nice contrast between the textured side and the bare round wire. Just so cool. Like, I love wire wrapping, but wire weaving is where I really feel like the magic that happens in the details has a spot to shine. There's 5. So I'm going to do 1 more and 5 more rotations. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'm going to go ahead, and if I do much more than this, it's not going to scooch down properly. So you can grab one side and pull it through, the other side and pull it through, and kind of stagger it down. Oops. And that's why if you do too much more than this, it gets really difficult to pull it down. So I'm going to try to make the sides nice and even. There we are. And you can see here now I have it smushed up, all up against the wire. And so now I'm going to do around both. And it's the only difference is now I have to bypass around all of this wire. And so to make that a little easier, I'll put a little bit of a split in it and thread in around from the top here. So you can actually poke it through, then grab. I mean, it just adds maybe a fraction of a second to each wrap, but whenever you're doing hundreds of wraps, it really does start to add up. So I'm going to continue doing this until I have run out of wire. Maybe. No, I don't think I'm going to do that until I've run out of wire. What I'm going to do then is keep changing my mind randomly. Sorry. Is as I weave it, here I think we've gotten far enough now that I can bring this around, maybe behind this wire. Sure, why not? And just kind of build and sculpt so that as it ends up coming around, I think I'm going to layer this one very mirrored to where the positioning of this wire is, to where it's going to come down across the bottom part here. So I'm just going to make enough of it until it comes over here, and then I'll meet you guys back over here. Okay, so it's a tangled mess of wire right now, but we got this done and extended all the way out. This was 5 rotations around one, 2 rotations around both, 5, 2, 5, 2, just like that. And then I've started over on this side doing a slight modification of this weave, only on 3 wires instead of 5. So you can kind of see how that's coming out. And I wanted to demonstrate to y'all how I do it. So I have 5 rotations around 1 wire. And then I'm going to wrap around 2 wires twice. And I'm going to try to not tangle up on my pliers every single time. Sorry. Okay, so I've wrapped twice. And now I'm going to wrap around all 3 twice, keeping it nice and snug. And then I'm going to wrap around just 2. Really wish the camera would cooperate with me. Yeah, twice around just the 2, and then 5 times around just the 1. And you can see to thread it through, I kind of hook it with my thumb, then feed it up, slide it over the end, and then bring it down. 2, 3, 4, 5. And now from here, I wanted this piece to fold over and be like eyelashes. So I'm going to take it. Oh, good gravy. Oh, bear with me, guys. I'm going to take it and I'm going to fold just like that. How that happened right there. And then this guy around the bottom is actually going to feed through underneath all these wires. So I'm just going to kind of cram that through right there. Okay, it got twisted, so I'm going to try to straighten that back out. Oh boy. Okay, so it's got a twist in it. So when I get in here with my pliers and kind of flatten it and force them around. Out from under there, you. There it goes. Okay. So that one's just going to sit there, kind of nice and happy for a minute, hopefully. I'm going to have these wires just coming off the side, nice and natural, to be something done with later. But I really like that framing action. And now, get all of our extra wire off to one side so it stops driving me nuts. And then this guy going to come off that way too. Okay, so now I can see that I do need a little bit more of this weave to come around, just like that. So I'm going to wrap around 2. And around 2. And around 3 twice. Around 2 twice. Okay. And then I'm going to do 5 rotations, and I'm going to do that for probably what looks like is going to be close to another inch. Like I want it to come around to right there. And then I'm going to tuck it behind these 2 wires. But let me go off screen or off camera and finish that up. And then it looks like I'm going to dig through and find some really pretty purple faceted stones to do some accenting with, because I think I'd like to do maybe another line of beads here, maybe, or something. Like just to give it a nice, like, streamlined, really layered scale effect. So let me go rummage through my beads and finish up this wrapping, and then I'll meet you guys right back here. So I have completed these rotations of that wrapping, and now I'm going to feed it through, like, right there, all of the wires, which is going to be kind of difficult because I don't want to put any, like, permanent kinks and bends in any of them at the same time. Okay, so I got the ends through. There she goes. And I want that kind of nice and tight. So I'm going to take this one. Oops, I'm making a mess. Always making a mess. And I'm going to bend it up pretty securely just to keep this from shifting around everywhere. Okay. So now... Also, this one, you can see this is real shifty. So I'm going to take it and just kind of twist to stabilize, making that little loop there. That stabilized it a good deal. It's not locked down, but it's better than what it was. I still want a layer of beads separating these two sections. So I'm going to use this piece of wire for that. It's coming out like right there. And I want it feeding in from below. So I fed it through right there, and I'm going to kind of pull up on it. Try to straighten it some. And I'm going to pull out, let's see, let me find the end of my wire, using some more of that 26 gauge. Again, a full arm span, like that seems pretty, like, I just like being consistent, I guess, in that one thing. Set that off to the side. And again, I'm going to start by just giving myself 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Compress that down. Use my fingers to kind of shift the rest of this around. Use my pliers if it gets too pointy pokey. And I have all of these beads right here, which are about a size 6 maybe? No, they're the next size up from the 8s. And these were actually from a mixed package, like all sorts of colors. I think I got it like Hobby Lobby maybe. I don't know, but I really liked the purple. So I'm going to do the same kind of wrapping as what I had on the other piece. Well, the other piece of wire. And if the little metal parts, like the wire that goes over them, don't line up, just use your fingernails or your pliers or something to kind of just get them in line with each other like that. I find being consistent about where you exit your wire can really help, but it doesn't always make all the difference. So sometimes you just need to smush stuff together. And I'm just going to keep adding the beads. So I put it into fast forward and finished up weaving these beads on and then weaving out the remainder of the wire. And now I'm going to take this and I'm going to feed it through right here. It's kind of right through there. And this isn't real particular, especially if you're kind of doing your own thing, if you're following along, but just kind of roughly want to use some of the same techniques or just, you know, craft together for a bit. It's not real particular, it's just wherever the line leads itself naturally through to. So I really wanted these two on top of the eye. There we go. Yeah, that really makes it look like, you know, an eye. So now we get into the really fun part of figuring out something to do with all of these wires. And so, what's an artist to do? Let's see. I'm going to pick one, like just here, this short one. And I'm going to take it and I'm going to feed it through maybe both of these, like right there. Sure, why not? And I think I might, yeah, I'm going to squidge it down real good on itself. I'm going to snip the wires so that I've got about 1/4 of an inch of uncoiled wire hanging off the end. There's my rounded wires. And I'm going to come around and I'm going to grab it as close to both the tip of the pliers and the tip of the wire as what I can. And I'm just going to start spiraling inward. Just like that. Whenever I get that far in, I'm going to just use my fingers to kind of coil and roll it down on itself. Just like that. I like it because it kind of makes it look like a little beauty mark for the dragon eye. Okay, now this one here, this is another short one. I like using the short ones because it gives me, it's like, well, I can't do a whole lot with it, so I'll just do something with it right quick. So I'm going to take this one and I'm going to feed it in like that. Because this helps stabilize this whole section. So if I cinch this down just a little tighter, it'll keep this upper lid from moving around everywhere on us. And so I'm going to kind of bring it around. Oh Lord, I'm just making messes. Oh goodness. When will I learn? Never. Never is when I will learn. Okay. And now, so I've got it twisting around kind of like that. I'm going to do the same thing on this one, where I'm going to snip it to give myself about 1/4 of an inch. And you can do more or less than this. I really like it. It gives me enough wire that I can control it with my pliers without pinching down on those thinner wrapping wires. I'm going to grab it as close to the points on both of them. Make a mess with more of the wire. Good grief. There we are. Sorry, it's hard to not get kind of flustered with all of these wires scratching me and flopping around everywhere, but there's not really anything that I know of to do about it other than just keep on wrapping. Well, I guess I could put the beads away, but then, you know, where's my sense of adventure? And now, there we go. Just coiled down like that. So already that has helped to kind of calm down some of the extra wires. With this one that's coming up around the top, I'm going to feed from behind, I do think. Yeah. So here you can see it's fed through from behind, and then I'm just going to wrap around. It's like pinball with all these beads everywhere. Please get out of my way, beads. Thank you. And I'm going to use them here in a sec, so I don't want to scooch them too far away. But then I'm going to wrap it around, just kind of beefing up this top lid. And now from here, I'm going to thread through right here. And I'd like to put a bead on it, maybe one of these ones. Just a nice little bicone, if it'll fit. My wire is not exactly like straight anymore. So I'm going to take my nylon jaw pliers, try my best to straighten it out so that a bead will slide more smoothly onto it. There we go. I don't think I'm going to use that one. I'm going to use one of these faceted bicones. I really like the flashes of the faceting. And I'm going to bend it in a little bit, and I'm going to kind of wrap around it like that. Now, the client who I'm making this for, I haven't talked a whole lot about her because I don't know how much she wants me to divulge, but she's real creative, you know, from the little bit that we've been able to communicate, and wanted something, I think, that's real kind of svelte and sexy and sassy, and so I wanted to make a very beautiful, fashionable, striking eye, because it really seems like that reflects her character pretty nicely from, again, the little bit of an impression I've gotten from her. You know, but also it's a dragon eye that thrives more on its intricacy, and it's more than just beautiful, like, if you get what I'm saying. I've got that wrapped around, and I'm going to feed back through again. That way this loop will be laying where I want it to. Really fighting with this 18 gauge to get it to lay where I want, and I'm just kind of cinching in and then pulling around, so you see it got that laying where I wanted it to again. And thread that on right there. I'm gonna have to straighten this out again. This wire is going to be pretty stiff by the time I get done with it, which I guess that's okay. Okay, so there's that one. And now from here, I'm actually going to feed in from above, hooking around through this row of beads. And I'm going to use my pliers to cinch everything around. I'm actually going to use them to put a little bit of a bend where I want the final bend to be. That way it'll lay right. Yay! Straightening it out some more again. I'm going to see if I can't fit on one of these 4mm faceted bicones. And, oh wow, I can. Let me see if the other one has a slightly bigger hole in it. Yes, it does. That's excellent. And so now from here, I'm going to feed through right here. And I'm going to grab it with my bent nose pliers, kind of cinch and pull it through. And I'm going to finish her off with a little spiral. One more final straightening. And I'm only going to make it about 2 finger widths wide, so maybe an inch, inch and a half, inch and a quarter. Let me measure and see. About an inch, maybe an inch and a quarter. Grab it as close as I can to both the end of the wire and my pliers. Kind of shape it around. Now with this being stiffer wire, I can actually take my nylon jaw pliers and bring it around, and it saves your fingers a bit. I'm just going to take my bent nose and bend it a bit so that it stays flush. That gives us a nice little cluster of beads. I'm starting to really be pleased with the way that this piece is coming out. So that's good. And I'm just going to follow this one around a little bit organically, you know, to get it to follow the loop of the spiral right here. But then to get it to be locked down, I'm going to feed up through here. Maybe one more wrap just to stabilize it. Oops, sorry. I don't mean to keep scratching the camera case with the wire. Okay, I'm going to give myself about 1/2 of an inch on this one, because otherwise it'll be a pretty small coil. And all this scrap wire, even though it's stiff and pretty work hardened, it'll be perfect for if I make any wrapped loops or anything. So I always hold on to all of my scrap wire. There we go. And I'm just kind of coiling up and around. I'm gonna grab my nylon gel pliers again to help me smush it, strong arm it into shape. Let's squish all that down. There we are. Now this part, I worry that it might get snagged and pull out and away. So what, oh kitty. So what I'm going to do with this here is I'm actually going to feed through. Do you see how it's hooking through here and here? So this should possibly, if everything goes as kind of planned, should act to stabilize this wire. And so now I'm going to feed up through from above, maybe, if I can. I'm going to kind of bend that a little bit more. And I'm bending the wire that I'm using as a tip, almost like a curved mattress wire, to get it to go through and then re-exit towards me so I can grab it with my pliers and start to pull it through. Now I want that to be hidden as much as possible, but yeah, that really did help to stabilize everything. And now I can take my nylon gel pliers and flatten that out. One of these very pretty bicones, and add that in right there to help fill in that gap. And then I'm just going to do a single wrap right here around this coiled part. And I'm going to add one more bead because beads are sparkly and pretty and I like them. So yeah. And I'm going to just kind of loop it around. Oops. Again, very sorry for that. And so from here, I'm going to give myself again about an inch. And I'm going to coil this in just like this. I'm going to kind of tuck that in as much as I can, that way it won't snag on anything. Oh, but yeah, that makes it look kind of full and you can lose yourself in it, that it's like even me just looking at it, like I'd have to focus and sit and try to pick this apart to be like, where did I start? You know? But that's, if you let it grow organically like that, then it can really have that cool effect. So now we still have all of these guys. So, oof. Okay. Because I want to maintain a balance on both sides, so I think I'm going to pull out some more faceted beads. Just sit this here for y'all to look at for a minute. I even found a 10mm one, that might be nice. And it's for stuff like this that I really enjoy getting my hands on some mixed packs, because you never know when you, I don't even know what that was. You never know when you might need just one oddly colored, oddly sized bead to complete your project and make it just perfect. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, And I don't really know what I'm going to do. I'd like to maybe beef up the top lid a little bit more, like this part up here. So let's see. I think I'm going to take this guy, our nice big 10mm, and bring her up to where she nestles in to that little cubby that got made there. And then I'm just going to wrap around. Just like that. Again, wanting to let this happen, as organically as possible. So, I think I'll have her enter in right here. Ooh, ooh la la. I think that's looking pretty neat. Kind of wishing I had an 8mm or something to put there. But what I could do is just hook on a 6mm and wrap around her to make her look bigger. Doing an improvisational figure 8. Again, it's with art like this, there's no right or wrong way. I don't know how many times I could say that twice a day, every day for the rest of my life, and I still will not have said it enough, because it's such an important concept that it's like, do whatever you want to do. It's art. There's no wrong, there's no bad. You know, even if it's something that you just kind of hate the way it comes out, it's still a piece of you. It's still a part of you. You still learned from it. You know, it's honor it for what it is and move on. You know, if you feel like, I mean, like, you made it and then the cat scratched it up, it's like, oh, that sucks, but this is life now. Okay, I don't know if I want to cover up too much more of this top section. But I think I might do, I've got a little 4mm here. I'm pulling out some more of these translucent purple seed beads. So I've got one on this bead that's like, it's a 6mm bicone, but it's kind of irregularly shaped, so it looks a little bit bigger than my faceted ones. And then another seed bead. And then another 6mm faceted bicone. And then another seed bead. And I'm honest to goodness just making this up as I'm going along. And then one of these nice purple from the eyebrow. Or does that? Nah, I don't like that. I'll do this other one. No. I will do this one. Yes. If it'll fit. I'm gonna have to straighten the wire. And this is the one that doesn't really fit that well, so I'm having to kind of wiggle it. We'll get there. I really hesitate to force it on, because that'll happen. Yeah, don't force your beads, guys. Now, I save these, because even though it fractures from the inside, I can still take this and set it into polymer clay, or cover it in resin or something. Like, I save, again, hoarder tendencies, but they pay off. So I'm going to dig another one of those out of my bin. Hopefully this one will have a nice large hole for stringing. I really hope the client likes this one. Like, she had said it's a birthday present to herself this year, so I want this to be really special and really great. Oh, come on, I don't want to break another one. Yeah, instead of forcing it, I'm just going to go ahead and pick another one out. Maybe you. Maybe the third time will be the charm. And it is. Excellent. And another seed bead. So now we have a nice little progression of large to small that I'm just going to tuck kind of behind there. Ooh, get back on there. Put your bad self. I'm just going to pick a spot and thread through it. And I should have some wire just floating around here from another project. Uh-oh, I just lost my bead. Where'd you go, bead? Oh well, it was just one of the little seed beads. Yeah, here it is. I had made too much wire on another project, so I had snipped it off and kept it over in my little scrap pile. So I can take that and just slide it on over the end. I'm going to trim off the kind of messed up end. It doesn't really want to go on past that point. So if you're making this and you don't have some little scrap wires, just coil yourself a little section, or string more beads on, or just leave it plain. But I want something that'll hold these beads more or less in their spot as I thread it through. Probably right here then. Nope, the other spot was better. Don't ever be afraid to unwrap or unweave or undo your wire. There we go. So that adds a kind of interesting dimension to it. And I'm actually going to go through and just thread on a bunch of alternating small and large purple beads. I'm afraid this is going to end up being too colorful for what she wants. But I guess worst case scenario, I could go back through and just cut this wire off entirely. So we'll see. But I want to keep a nice clean line, is why I'm doing this part. Well, at least let me get it to where you can see what I'm doing. Sorry. Yeah, I don't think I like that. Never mind. Easy fix. Let me re-separate out those beads. So what I'll do here then is I'm just going to snip this wire because I don't want to add too many more spirals in case it gets too spiral heavy on this end. But I'm just going to take that and curl it around to behind. And then I'm going to compress it down some. So I'm basically making just like a wrapped loop. Let's look at it from the back. So yeah, you can see here, it's not going to be poking anybody. There it goes. Yep, no pokey bits. Yay, no pokey bits. Okay, now let's see. Now this guy is the shortest of what we're working with, so I think I'm going to bring it around. And this one's actually the shortest of the short that we're working with. So I'm going to snip right there. Save that wire for another project. And start spiraling this feather in on himself. And I'm going to kind of fold it over so that the spiral happens this way, because I don't know why, I just like that better right now. Ooh, I do like that though. So now this one, I'm actually going to follow around on the spiral this way. And I'm going to hook underneath this part. Grab it and kind of start feeding it through. So I still want it to frame, there we go, on that side. But now, oops, these blasted beads again. I'm going to trim this just a little shorter. And spiral this down and in. I'm going to try to scooch this down a bead. There we are. And there we are. Ooh, I like that so much. And so that way it has a little bit of balance between the sides. And now with this one, I'm going to cut to where it's a little over an inch, maybe an inch and a half. And I'm going to put in a spiral. And then I'm going to flatten that out with my bent nose pliers. And tuck it in a bit. And then just adds another layer, but it's a way of finishing that end where it will not, like absolutely will not be pokey. Now this one, I'm just bending up and around, and I think this is going to be one that I'm going to thread 2 of these larger, the same beads that we used on this part right here. One large one. One 6mm faceted like bicone that's in like a pinky purple color. And then another of those large beads. And then this one is actually going to feed from below down here, right through there. And it was a goal of mine to have the wires kind of hold those beads in place so that they won't just be slipping and sliding everywhere. Straighten that out with my fingers some. See if that should hold pretty well. You can also always take it, put your pliers in. I'm going to use a finer tipped bent nose on this one, and put a bit of a kink there in the wire. If it's no longer straight, it'll no longer wiggle. So for this one, I'm just wrapping around the bottom down here. So yeah, it's just coming through, wrapping around, and now I'm going to give it a snip. And trying my best to make a nice organic spiral. I'm just going to come on up right here and have it a little centered under the pupil. And there we are, guys. Oh my gosh, I think I love it. I'm going to take pictures and send them to the client and see what they think, because that's most important. And I'll let you all know in the log out, like in the little end credit thing that I do. So be right back,
So
guys.
I hope y'all enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it was helpful to you. I know I have another one out that's very similar to it, but I feel like this one included some details and components and steps that were just not in the other bracelet. So I'm really pleased, especially pleased actually, with how it came out. Fortunately, the client loves it, which I'm so pleased with, but so happy. Thanks you guys so much for all of your support and encouragement, and for watching, and for letting me know what your thoughts are, and all of that is just, I'm so excited to be on this adventure with y'all as we all craft and learn together. So if you enjoy my tutorials and would like to support more of them in the future, sorry, you can go to my Patreon page, which there's a link down in the comment area where you can go, and even if you pledge just $1, it puts your name in the hat to win one of my handmade, like one-of-a-kind fairy houses or homes for the gnomeless or wire sculpted trees. And if you want a higher chance of winning, you can pledge $5, and that puts your name in the hat 5 times. So it greatly increases your odds, but I think we try to have something for every budget. So, and then if you pledge $10, you still get your name in the hat once, but I start sending you kits and materials or gifts or just whatever you'd like. So, and it just kind of keeps going up from there. So, thank you again for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and tell your friends so we can spread this free artisan education around as much as possible. So I love all of you. Give yourselves a big hug from me and have a beautiful day. Bye.